Life isn't about one big defining moment. It's about the little steps you take every single day. The truth is, progress isn't made in leaps and bounds. It's made in inches, one small win at a time. Hey, I'm Josh Taylor, and welcome to the Next Right Question podcast. And today, we're talking about a simple but powerful question. What's the next small step I can take today? So if you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or like you're waiting for that big break, this episode is for you, because here's the thing. The breakthrough isn't coming until you start building it, one small step at a time. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever started a project or maybe set a goal so big that it felt impossible? Maybe you've told yourself, I'll wait until I'm ready, or I'll tackle it when I have more time. That's the problem with big goals. They're inspiring, but they can really feel overwhelming. Understand this. Big momentum doesn't start with big moves. It starts with asking, what's the next small step I can take today? You see, small wins create confidence. They send a signal to your brain, hey, I can do this. I'm making progress. And that confidence is what gets you to take the next step. Here's an example. Let's say you want to start running, but the thought of running a 5K feels like too much. What's the next small step? Maybe it's putting on your running shoes and walking for 10 minutes. That's it. The win isn't running the whole race, it's showing up. And when you show up consistently, the big goals start to feel more doable. It's kind of like climbing a mountain. You don't stand at the base and jump to the summit. You take one step, then you take the next step, and eventually you look back and realize how far up the mountain you've come. Here's the reality. Those small steps aren't just practical, they're powerful. Psychologists call it the progress principle. Small wins create a feeling of momentum, and that momentum builds motivation. It's a cycle, and it all starts with one question. What's the next small step I can take today? Now, let's talk about consistency, because small wins aren't just about the single step. It's about showing up over and over and over and over again. Think about it this way. Imagine you're overwhelmed by a messy house. This morning, I cleaned up my office because it was overwhelming. I really didn't feel like cleaning my office, so instead of tackling the whole thing, I asked, what's the next small step? I set a timer for 5 minutes, and I started cleaning one corner of the room. It wasn't about finishing, it was about starting. But guess what? My whole office ended up getting clean simply because I started. Or maybe you've been meaning to build stronger relationships in your life. Instead of trying to fix everything all at once, ask, what's one small step you can take today? Maybe it's sending a quick text to someone you care about, letting them know that you're thinking of them. That's a win. The compound effect happens when you repeat these small actions consistently. Over time, they add up to something bigger. Here's another example. Let's say you're trying to save money. Instead of focusing on how far away your goal feels, you ask, what's the next small step? Maybe it's making lunch at home instead of buying it out. That one decision doesn't seem like much in the moment, but over a year, those small savings add up to real progress. The question is always the same. What's the next small step I can take today? You don't need to do everything at once. You just need to do something every day, because those small wins over time create big change. So let's make this practical. How do you start stacking small wins in your life? Well, it starts by asking, what's the next small step I can take today? And here's 3 simple steps to get started. First, identify your next small step. Don't focus on the finish line. Focus on what you can do today. For example, if you want to write a book, the next small step isn't finishing a chapter, it's writing one paragraph. Or maybe you're trying to eat healthier. The next step might be adding a serving of vegetables or protein to one meal today. Second, celebrate every win. And this is huge, because every time you take a small step, you need to take a moment to acknowledge it. Maybe it's a mental good job, or maybe you treat yourself to something small. For example, if you make progress on a work project, celebrate with a 10-minute break or your favorite coffee. And third, reflect on how far you've come. Every so often, stop and look back. Recognize the progress that you have made, no matter how small it feels. For example, if you've been journaling daily, look back through your entries and see how much you've grown over time. When you ask yourself, what's the next small step I can take today, you create a mindset shift. It's no longer about the way to the goal, it's about progress. One small win at a time, and those small wins are like seeds. You plant them, you water them, and over time they grow into something bigger than you ever expected. So here's my challenge for you this week. Think about one goal or one area of your life where you might feel stuck. And now ask yourself, what's the next small step I can take today? Write it down, do it, and then celebrate it. And if you're wondering whether these small steps actually matter, let me leave you with this. Every meaningful thing in your life, your relationships, your achievements, your personal growth, those were all built one small step at a time. So don't wait for the big break or the perfect moment. Start where you are. Take the next small step. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear about your small wins. Please reach out to me on Instagram or share your thoughts by commenting on this episode. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. New episodes drop every Friday, and I'll be here to help you ask better questions and take meaningful steps forward. So until next time, stay curious, stay open, and remember, you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to ask the next right question.